Next, I'll turn to House Resolution 752, which reaffirms our support for the rights of the Iranian people and condemns the Iranian regime for violently cracking down on protests. In the past months, I've been horrified by the images coming from Iran. Peaceful protesters met with violence, abuse, and brutality. Internet and communications technology completely cut off and censored. It's just sickening to see the way that the regime treats the people of Iran. So I'm pleased we are considering this measure to reaffirm Congress's longstanding bipartisan support for the Iranian people's right to freedom of expression and our strong opposition to the regime's cruel tactics. I hope all members will join me and support this measure.
As former chairman of the Middle East Subcommittee, I want to thank Mr. Deutsch and Mr. Wilson for their hard work on HRES 752, which I'm a co-sponsor. This important resolution reaffirms our support for the rights of the Iranian people and condemns the regime's crackdown on recent protests. The people of Iran have a right to hold their tyrannical rulers accountable for the economic stagnation that they have brought upon their country.
Lastly, on the Iran resolution, I'd like to thank my colleagues, Mr. Deutsch and Mr. Wilson, for their work on a resolution supporting the rights of the people of Iran to free expression and condemning the Iranian regime for its crackdown on legitimate protests. This resolution is an important step in responding to their protest and subsequent crackdown. I think particularly with this maximum pressure campaign, Iran is starting to feel the squeeze. They're crippled. They're getting provocative. And now is the time, I think, to act so that we can topple the regime and free the Iranian people.
In mid-November, popular protests against the Iranian regime began and rapidly spread to at least 100 cities throughout the country and the most significant anti-government demonstrations in Iran since 2009. And while protesters took to the streets in response to an announced increase in the price of fuel, they also called for structural reform of the Iranian political system and condemned current and former leaders. In response, Iranian authorities shut down the internet. Security forces used lethal force, killing hundreds of people, marking the highest casualty rate of any protest movement in Iran since the Islamic Revolution 4 decades ago, and arresting at least 7,000 more. Congress has long expressed bipartisan support for the human rights of the Iranian people, including the rights to peaceably assemble and protest. Congress has also supported the rights of Iranian dissidents and authorized the licensing of communications services to improve the ability of the Iranian people to speak freely. In keeping with that tradition, HRES 752 expresses the support of the House of Representatives for the rights of the Iranian people to free expression and condemns the regime for its crackdown on the recent legitimate, peaceful protests in Iran. The resolution condemns the Iranian regime's serious human rights abuses, significant corruption, and destabilizing activities abroad, and urges the President and the Secretary of State to work with the international community to ensure that violations of human rights are part of all formal and informal multilateral or bilateral discussions with and regarding Iran. I thank my friend Mr. Wilson for his leadership on this and so many other issues I'm proud to partner with him on. Thank all of my colleagues for their support of this resolution, which demonstrates that Congress stands with the Iranian people against a brutal regime and supports their right to live in a free society.
First and foremost, I would like to express my strong support for my friend Chairman Ted Deutsch's HRES 752, supporting the rights and people of Iran. I truly believe that we are witnessing history today in Iran. Protests have erupted in mid-November over an announced rise in price of fuel has managed to ignite a massive countrywide popular protest that challenge the very nature of the political system in Iran. The Iranian people want a government that works for them, not to prop up a network of criminals and terrorists that include Assad and Hezbollah. The Ayatollah cares more about death to America and death to Israel than he does about the Iranian people who have lived through unimaginable suffering over the past 40 years at the regime's hands. The great heritage of Persia has been subverted. The foremost state sponsor of terrorism in the world has reacted in exactly the way any terrorist group would to these organized expressions of democracy. It is killing protesters by the hundreds, with a recent report suggesting the number could reach 1,000 persons killed. In some cases, the terrorist regime is even refusing to return bodies to the families and loved ones. The news has been tragic, but I am hopeful and inspired by the energy and commitment of the people of Iran. I believe that one day we will see the Iranian people take back their government and their destiny. This important resolution sends a strong message of support to the Iranian people, and I thank Chairman Deutsch for his work, as well as for his tireless advocacy on behalf of human rights of the people of Iran. The very valued Iranian-American community has been effective promoting freedom and democracy for their beloved families at home.
Finally, HRES 752, introduced by my esteemed colleague and friend Ted Deutsch, supports the rights of the Iranian people to free expression and condemns the violent crackdown by the Iranian regime. We in Congress support the rights of the Iranian people to freely assemble without fear of violence from their government. This resolution makes it clear that Congress is watching these events closely and will continue to speak out against violence against peaceful protesters. I yield back.